The economic history of Hong Kong has 6 major events. These are the Treaty of Nanking, the establishment of the People's Republic of China, the Open Door Policy, the return of Hong Kong to Chinese rule, the Asian financial crisis, and the first Pan-Pearl River Delta Regional Cooperation and Development Forum. The Treaty of Nanking ended the Opium War fought between the Chinese and the British. The treaty signed in 1942 gave control of Hong Kong over to the British. The British control helped Hong Kong become a major financial center in the area. In addition to this, British control promoted growth in the shipping, banking, and merchant industries. The rapid expansion of industry led to a boom in Hong Kong's population, growing from 7,500 in 1841 to over 85,000 in 1859. The People's Republic of China took control of China from the Kuomintang in 1949. The PRC began an era of isolation from the West. This made China heavily reliant on goods from Hong Kong. This reliance promoted the trade industry in Hong Kong and allowed it to begin industrialization. The Open Door Policy was enacted in 1978. This policy effectively increased China's investment in Hong Kong. Thus, Hong Kong became the main provider of financial and commercial services to China. Trade between the countries began to grow at 28% per year. Furthermore, this allowed Hong Kong to move its labor-intensive jobs to Guangdong, China, enabling it to focus its resources on creating a service sector. Hong Kong was returned to China by England in 1997. China kept Hong Kong economically independent through a policy called One Country, Two Systems. But the thought of capitalist Hong Kong being returned to communist China frightened many residents in Hong Kong. Thus, starting in 1984, many began to leave Hong Kong. It is estimated that between 250,000 to 1 million left Hong Kong during this period. The Asian financial crisis began mid-1997. The crisis caused share prices and property value to plummet, which in turn affected borrowers' ability to repay their loans, crippling the banking industry. During this time, unemployment rose by 6%. The first Pan-Pearl River Delta Regional Cooperation and Development Forum was held in 2004. This integrated the Hong Kong and Chinese economies by increasing trade and investment between the two entities. This agreement promoted a higher level of education. Additionally, it opened up new opportunities for Hong Kong to economically expand, creating more jobs. This new level of cooperation made Hong Kong a major source of capital and finance for the mainland China, which helped to strengthen both economies.
Hong Kong's significant natural resources include feldspar and a deep-water harbor. Its major sectors include textiles and clothing, tourism, banking, shipping, and electronics. Hong Kong's best-performing sectors are shipping and banking. Traditionally, banking is Hong Kong's best sector, as Hong Kong is the financial center of Asia. Hong Kong's GDP metrics for 2013 include $272.2 billion GDP and $52,700 GDP per capita. This represents a 2% increase from 2012. The unemployment rate in Hong Kong in 2013 was 3.1%, which represented a negative 0.2% change from 2012. The inflation rate in 2013 was 4.4%, or a positive 0.3% change from 2012. Hong Kong's 6 major exports include electrical machinery and appliances, textiles, apparel and footwear, watches, clocks and toys, plastics, precious metals, and printed materials. Its major imports include raw materials and semi-manufactures, consumer and capital goods, foodstuffs, and fuel, which is mostly re-exported. Hong Kong's major trading partners for exports are China, the United States, and Japan, and for imports, China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and the United States. Hong Kong is affected by 3 major trade agreements. The first, the Closer Economic Partnership Agreement, fully opens trade between Hong Kong and mainland China. This gives Hong Kong access to a large Chinese market, and it gives the mainland China unrestricted access to one of the most important ports in the region. The second agreement is the European Free Trade Association Free Trade Agreement, which is between Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland, and Hong Kong. It abolishes tariffs forever between these nations. The third free trade agreement is between Hong Kong and Chile and was undertaken in 2011. In the first half of 2012, Chilean exports to Hong Kong rose to $181 million. This free trade agreement opened the service markets of each country to expand. This was especially true in the labor market. Foreign direct investment inflow totaled $75 billion in 2012. This was the 3rd highest FDI in the world. The largest FDI contributor to Hong Kong was Malaysia at $4.9 billion. Hong Kong operates a linked exchange rate. Their currency is linked to the US dollar. International capital flows totaled $26 trillion in 2012. The sector that received most of this flow was labor-intensive goods.
Hong Kong implements a free trade policy, meaning there are hardly any trade barriers, no customs tariffs, and minimal fees for import and export licensing, as well as free trade port status. These policies are strategic in the sense that trade is a major part of their economy, and it is beneficial to make it easier for international exchanges to occur. The government of Hong Kong has a website to recruit investors called Invest Hong Kong, in which potential investors can research tax information, information on government support, and other aspects of investment. They boast of the transparency and efficiency of their government and only exercise taxation in 3 areas: profit, salaries, and property, which all maintain relatively low percentage caps. This means that they do not implement sales tax, withholding tax, capital gains tax, estate tax, or tax on dividends as many other nations do. Regarding visitation and work visas, very little restrictions exist. Funds must be sure to be sufficient for the extent of the trip if one is just visiting. For work visas, the position must have already been accepted and there can be no record of serious crime. Visas must be fairly easy to obtain because of the amount of foreign investment and other international activity regarding business that occurs in Hong Kong. Hong Kong operates on a linked exchange rate system in which the Hong Kong dollar is directly linked to the US dollar. $7.80 in Hong Kong dollars is equal to $1 in the US, meaning the exchange rate is floating but only shifts when the value of the US dollar shifts. This is to try to maintain a fairly stable exchange rate without direct government control.
The free market capitalist structure of Hong Kong's economy is the most important feature of Hong Kong's financial situation. 3 main sources of income are tourism, shipping, and banking. Geography has played a key role in Hong Kong's economic growth. Hong Kong is a key part and middleman in trade between China and the rest of the world. FDI has been a major source of Hong Kong's economic development as an international business hub. As a center of international business, the exchange rate must be stable to ensure efficient transactions and predictions in speculative markets. Trade is the largest part of Hong Kong's economy. Because the service economy is dependent on re-exporting goods, it is a prime example of the new trade theory. Trade balance surplus has been $2.9 billion due to increase in value of re-exports. From the discussion of trade, it is apparent that Hong Kong has benefited greatly economically from the inflow and outflow of real and financial capital. Capital flow is an important way for countries to interact when moving towards globalization. In regards to the Hong Kong economy, this is reflected in shipping, banking, and tourism sectors.